I'm just kidding. That's all I know how to play is country music. Been a number of years ago since I've been in this church, but I wasn't preaching that weekend. I was responsible for the ASI weekend here at this church. But anyway, now I'm going to try to preach to you, talk to you, not preach at you. And I was wondering, is my friend Joe Ray here? Hello, Elder Ray. Good to see you. Greetings to you from Hope Channel. Even though I retired from the North American Division Stewardship Ministries, I now have a new job. I work with Hope Channel. How many here watch Hope Channel? Oh, fantastic. Now, we're going to get really picky. How many have seen me on my TV program on Hope Channel? What's the name of it? It causes problems everywhere it goes. It's called Stupid Money and Things People Do With It. I've had a lot of fun with that, and we've just finished season 3. I did some glass blowing. I was sitting in a sauna trying to interview somebody with a cold rag on my head, and then after I got out, I jumped in a glacier-fed creek. That was pretty rough. I could not make my head go underneath the water. It just would not go. And done a lot of different things with that. Looking for season 4, and I think there's probably some people here in this congregation that would really do well on that TV program. So anyway, nice to be here. I've just spent about 3 weeks in South Africa. We did what is called a stewardship safari. That's where we go to a number of different churches. I went to a church in northern Africa and to an Afrikaans church. And one of the church members, he's the head elder, so to speak, he runs a 293,000 avocado tree farm, orchard, whatever it is. Avocados that were as big as grapefruit. I have never seen anything like that before. And wow, were they ever delicious. And I said, do you ship those to the United States? He says, no, they all go to Europe, but we would certainly like to send some to the United States. So anyway, having gone through a little jet lag, I hope we are here, and I'm assuming we end at 12, correct? Whenever I want. That's a terrible thing to say to a preacher. You know, I was in Guam, and I talked for 33 hours. But it was not all on Sabbath. And so this morning I would like to share a few things with you. Those of you that are retired, this feels pretty good. And somebody said, you're too young to retire. I said, I did not want to go to the nursing home directly from work. And so I'm still going to be doing some things, working for Hope Channel, and try to do some writing and on the topic of stewardship. And so I want to share a few things with you today. Before we get going, this afternoon, if you come to the seminar, it's about family finances. And the young people, they will be watching this little DVD called The Mysterious Note. I'm the executive producer of this. And what that means is I furnished the producer money, and then I got to scream a lot. Because once you get involved in these and you're filming right there, it's time to not say anything and let them film. So this is all filmed around Andrews University. Everybody in it is Seventh-day Adventist. There's a guy in here that does a pretty serious rap in Spanish. He's an Adventist pastor in the Northwest. And if you know anything about some famous Seventh-day Adventist, well-known Seventh-day Adventist like the painter Green, and then Nathan Green, the pastors of Pioneer Memorial Church, Jamie George, there's a few other, John Mathews, I happen to do a cameo in here, and the most famous of all is Jack. He's our dog, and I'm sorry my wife wasn't feeling well this morning from the trip to Africa, and we call him Stewardship Jack. He has 6 books out about him, a coloring book, and in a movie he's more famous than I am. Not this last Oshkosh, but the one previous. I went up there to Oshkosh for a couple of days because they had an entire tent revolving around Stewardship Jack, and he was there. Went to the gate. I said to the security officer, "I'm John Mathews, North American Division Stewardship Director. This is my wife, Jan, and this is Stewardship Jack." And he says, "We don't have any idea who you are. Never met you, but I have heard of Stewardship Jack, so you can come on in." And so he's getting a little white beard, but we just are trying to make all the products available for the Northern Conference in South Africa so they can use these children's book and the material there. So, you know, if it were me, I would rather go watch the movie than come to the finance seminar. So, but kids and adults, if you want to watch this afternoon, I show this wherever I go free, but legally I cannot sell it because there's a contract to do all that. But since I'm the executive producer, we will have a free screening this afternoon. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. How you doing with that? Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Who is he? It's not your pastor. It's not the General Conference president. It is not some well-known Seventh-day Adventist or some author that has written more books than you and I could ever hope to read. It is he that will direct your path. But I've got to trust him with all of my heart. How on earth do I do that? You do that a couple of different ways. You do it, one, intellectually. And the fact that you are here this morning tells me that you have read, you have studied, someone has taught you, you've gone to a seminar, you've watched television, you've looked at preaching through independent ministries, and you've come to the conclusion that I want to believe what this body of church members stand for. We call it the three angels message. We do not need to shy away from that or be embarrassed by it, because we believe it intellectually. But here comes the problem. The other way that I've got to trust in the Lord with all my heart is trust him on an emotional level. And we live in the world of our emotions more than we live in the world of our intellect. There have been times I have got up on Sabbath morning and I have said to myself, I do not feel like preaching today. Have you ever got up and said, I do not feel like going to work? But you reach down deep and you get up and you get dressed and you go to work. And you're not happy about it all day long. That's all feelings. Your intellect has told your feelings to take a back seat. What happens is our emotions drive our intellect. And that's why in the culture that we live in today, we live in an emotional culture. But I believe that our intellect is to govern our emotions while our emotions make drives and gives us the power to activate the intellect. It's kind of like an elephant and a rider. The rider is the intellect. The elephant is the emotions. Who could run the show if they wanted to? Too often, the elephant does. But the intellect governs the emotions. So you and I have got to trust in the Lord with all of our heart on an intellectual level and on an emotional level. Enter, I'm just going to pick up where the children's story lady, Cheryl Allgood, left off. You know what that is? Do you trust in this? I usually have a $100 bill, but I gave it away. I'm not giving this one away. This is only $10. Do you trust in this intellectually? Or do you trust in this emotionally? We trust in this intellectually because the Federal Reserve, which is the bank of the United States government, said to them, we will provide you stability and security. And so you'll see the stock market go up and down and the value of currency going up and down. And it's because this cannot guarantee stability or security. If you want an interesting little book to read, it's called The Smartest Man or The Richest Man in Babylon. It was written before the 1929 crash. The principles in that little book are very appropriate for today. And I could tell you the history of how this currency, came about. This is called fiat money. It claims, well, let me put it this way. This piece of paper is not worth $10, right? But since the government wrote $10 on there, they said, we give this value. We say it's worth $10, even though the piece of paper is not worth $10. That's part of how fiat money comes about. They printed it from nothing. They created it out of thin air. There is nothing backing this up. There used to be gold once upon a time, but no longer. Fiat money probably originated in China some AD 1000. And then if you go over to Guam, Micronesia, to an island called Yap, you will find they have stone money. And the people that are wealthy, they say, all my money is out there in the bay. It's in a great big stone. That's fiat money, the principles of fiat money. Every piece of currency in the entire world is fiat money. Nothing backs it up except your confidence in the government that issued it. So, if I had $1 in South Africa, it was 15 rands to $1, and in a period of 3 weeks, the dollar increased in strength. It was then 14 rands to $1. Now, the Seventh-day Adventist Church finances is very sophisticated. If you have $14 to $1 and you have the people in that part of the world returning tithe and offerings, and they send some all the way up to the General Conference, that's got to go through the process of exchange, and they are going to lose money. So the General Conference has strategically placed repositories all around the world in effort to be wise stewards of the tithe dollar. Pretty cool. But it is so complicated, it's harder to understand than the 2300-day prophecy. How a world church manages its finances. And having been on that level, I have never seen people work so hard to manage them carefully and to protect that asset. Well, while I say this is fiat money, here's what it really is. This is the God of this world. And you and I have a choice, trusting in the Lord with all of our heart or leaning on our own understanding. This is the God of this world. It's a demigod. It has power. It doesn't have ultimate power. What else is this? If this is the God of this world, materialism is its religion. What is materialism? It is stuff. I can guarantee you there are places in this community where the neighborhood has no garage at the house. Then you go to the next neighborhood, there's a one-car garage. You go to the next neighborhood, there's a two-car garage. You go to the next neighborhood, there's a three-car garage. And pretty soon you have to have a storage unit. Do you know what is in a storage unit? Junk. Did you know you have miniature storage units in your house? If you let me pull open this drawer, open this cabinet, I bet I would find junk in some of those drawers. They are bits and pieces, though, of your emotional life, and you don't want to get rid of them, even though your spouse says, why don't you sell them at the next yard sale? No, they are an extension of my emotional existence. So it's stuff. Stuff seems to grow. Money's the god of this world. Materialism is its religion. Some people call it capitalism. Capitalism is the United States' gift to the rest of the world. I just was in some malls in Johannesburg, South Africa, that were just as nice as any mall you see, and maybe even better than the malls you have here in the United States. So the whole world is caught up with materialism, because this stuff will open doors for me. People will kill for it. They work hard for it. And when I work hard for it and it becomes mine, and I'm asked to part with it, and I want to buy a big expensive guitar, and I shell out this stuff in real money, it really causes me physical pain. But put a credit card, the pain goes away. So you can imagine, you come to church, and they're standing up here asking you for your tithes and your offerings, and if you don't want to give it away because it's an extension and represents what you have worked and spent energy working for. It's part of you. But just remember, don't hoard this, because hoarding means I can't be without my stuff. My identity is blended with my stuff. So the question is your identity blended with this? Maybe they should always have credit cards when it comes to tithe and offering, because then nobody feels any pain whatsoever. So you call this money. We call this money, but this is not money. You say, wait a minute, Pastor, you've been in administration way too long. This is a token of what money is. When you get a bill in the mail, this becomes an IOU. This is a token. It's a symbol of what money is. Money is a system of debit and credits. If you go buy a car, most of us don't shell out hard cash to buy the car. We either write a check, or they want to just connect with your bank account. They deduct that. Well, the bank, they don't have enough of this currency to cover all the assets that people hold. It's a transition of debit and credit. It's a system. The entire world has bought into this system, and it has a name. It is called borrow and spend. The world will never be out of debt. This is actually a form of debt right here. Now, you may think this is really strange talking. You'll just have to read about it. The world has a system called borrow and spend. The Bible has a system called save and invest. Just that simple. You and I, especially as Seventh-day Adventists, don't need to buy in to the system of borrowing and spending, because when you borrow, you become a slave. Money's the god of this world. Materialism is its religion. Consumerism is the sanctuary that we gather in to worship. So we not only have to have stuff, we have a never-ending thirst for stuff. And so we go spend more. We continue to go shopping. We continue to go and spend it. Most of us, no matter how much we make, we spend all we have. If you don't, you're living good. What's my text? How well are you doing at trusting in the Lord with all of your heart, intellectually and emotionally, or leaning on your own understanding? What is the text? Matthew 6:24. It says you cannot serve two masters. It's not talking about musical instruments. It's talking about this. This is the only competitor God has on this planet. You cannot serve God and money. But you and I live in a culture that's based on emotion, and retailers are very, very good at separating us from our money. You go to Home Depot, the interior of Home Depot has been laid out to appeal to women. So money's the god of this world, materialism is its religion, consumerism is the sanctuary that we gather in to worship. The line between church and business is being blurred in the United States. Just over there in Dallas, there's a place called Potter's House. They will have huge church socials, and the local business people will sponsor those socials. And so the car dealership, who's a sponsor of the church social at Potter's House, brings cars over to the social trying to sell them to the congregation. Money's the god of this world. Materialism is its religion. Consumerism is the sanctuary that we gather in to worship. And here we go. Sex is the mysticism of materialism. What on earth is that? Whenever you have an experience with Jesus Christ, do you see him? No, we haven't seen him. We believe by faith. When we have an experience with Jesus, some call it a mystical experience. But this says sensuality is the mysticism of materialism. What do I mean by that? Retailers are really good at this. Here's a Corvette 2020 sitting here. And right here is a person, and there's chemistry going back and forth between this inanimate object, this person. It's coming off the page, it's coming off the TV screen, and it's coming off when you're standing there looking at it. And retailers know that it sells, sensuality sells, but they don't call it that. They call it the concept. They know it works. So I was surfing the internet one day trying to understand how this phenomenon takes place, and I saw this young man twirling around with a beautiful young lady. They were dancing, going from room to room, dressed in tuxedos, evening gowns, and then goes into double doors, and he is casually dressed. She's casually dressed. Boy gets girl, and the last picture you see is a water faucet. They're using the concept to sell. The Christian church, I'm not going to define it as such, just Christian church knows that the concepts work because they are in financial crisis, and they know that if they allow women to take up the offering, they will get more money. You trust in the Lord with all your heart, intellectually and emotionally. Let your intellect drive your emotions, or do you lean on your own understanding? Money is the god of this world. Materialism is his religion. Consumerism is his sanctuary we gather in to worship. Sensuality is the mysticism of materialism. I do not want a mystic experience with Jesus Christ. I want a real one. Here's how I know I want a real experience. When I worked at the union office, I was driving home one day. I had $100 bills in my hand that equaled $2,000. They were spread out, and I was fanning. I would smell them. I had just sold a motorcycle, and I couldn't wait to spend my $2,000. Now, I sold it for $2,000. I paid $3,500, so it cost me $1,500. And I'd have it in my garage. I'd have to get a new battery every year because I didn't ride it very much. I'd buy a battery, put it in. I couldn't get it started, so I'd have to take it to the mechanic, get it started. Then I'd ride it up and down the neighborhood and put it back in the garage and park it. Did that year after year. And one day I said to my wife, I'm going to sell my motorcycle. And so I had the $2,000 fanning on my way home. What I'm going to tell you is not a mystical experience. It's a real experience. God said to me, John, I want $1,500 of your $2,000. And I stopped fanning. I'm in my car. I am not in church. I said, okay, God, it's yours. I will not think any more about how I'm going to spend this. You can have it. But I said, God, what do you want me to give it to? Do any of you ever have people ask you questions and you do what is called hum-haw around? I felt like God was hum-hawing around with me. He said, okay, I'll tell you. I want you to invest in something you cannot see. Okay, I'll do that. But Lord, I'm an Adventist. I want to know where my money goes. He said, okay, John, I'll tell you. I want you to invest in a one-day church. I said, okay. I've only seen pictures of my one-day church. I've never seen it in real. It's yours. So I give the $1,500 and some rich guy puts another $1,500 with it. So it takes rich guys and poor people to advance the gospel. Don't ever forget that. You may be poor. You may be putting in your $30 and $40 a month tithe or whatever it is. It is. It is little. It is insignificant. But it is not insufficient. You just read the story of the widow's mite and what Ellen White says, how that widow's mite's offering just went into a mighty current and spread through the whole world. It takes rich guys and poor guys to advance the cause of God. I said, okay, Lord, it's yours. I said, I just have one more question. He said, okay, what is it, John? I said, can I fan with this money until I get home? He said, sure, go ahead. I started fanning again. Then he said, John, don't push me around. If you push me around anymore, I'm going to get the other 500. Listen, folks, I do not know, and I never will know, what happened to the $500. But I will never forget what happened to the 1,500. Martin Luther, founder of the Lutheran Church, he says, I've held many things in my hands. That which I have kept, I have lost. That which I have given to God, I still have. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. A relationship with Christ. A real relationship. If it's just going to be a mystical experience, I'm done. Might as well give up. But there's a problem with materialism. Narcissism is the mental disorder of materialism. Narcissism is when you think you're somebody that you are not. And this stuff will make you think you are somebody you aren't. If you have enough of it, you think you can do stuff with it. And you can. But it will give you a false sense of security. You take the narcissus flower, the juice will kill other plants. That's the characteristic of a person that said, I will ascend above the thrones of heaven. He was happy and comfortable with his own beauty. And then there's hoarding. I've talked about that. What is the solution to all of this stuff? You and I, we live in a soup. We live in a culture. Look, we live in a culture where if you start reading and studying about culture, you'll find that there was the drawing a blank, the revolution in France many, many hundreds of years ago. Then you had modernism. Now we're in postmodernism. Postmodernism started in around 1980. And all of these things, it's a progressive step away from believing in truth. Postmodern says you can believe anything you want to believe. Everybody has their own set of truths. That's the culture we live in. Now they are taking it one step further. And if you know what to look for, you can see this pretty clearly. And I'm not into the conspiracy theories or anything whatsoever because I have never been able to understand most of those things anyway. But you and I are living in a culture where they are trying to rewrite the worldview to obliterate Christianity from the face of the earth. So what are they doing? They appeal to young people by getting them involved in the environmental movement. Let's take care of the planet. And that's a mighty good cause. They also say atheism is dead. Secular humanism is dead. Christianity is the enemy of culture. We do not want to believe that I am who I am and God is who He is. I want to believe that God is within me because all of these other philosophies have not worked. So we reject truth. We reject all of that. What is left? They will say, come join us, help us take care of the planet. It's where we live, and we will draw our spirituality from within. And that is paganism. That, if you say, well, you believe in postmodernism, that's an antique. Call them progressives. So you and I are in a culture that is swimming against the river, the current. And it will not stop going that direction until Jesus comes back. But for you and me, what is the solution to this? I find it in Zechariah 4, verse 6. Not by might, nor by power, but what? By my Spirit. What does that mean? Not by might means there is a huge, strong army. They are invincible. They can just move right through the enemy. But I don't care how big an army you have, whether you are the army or not, you are not enough to do for me what I need done in my heart. Not by might, nor by power. Power is an individual hero like Hercules. The Romans would return tithe to their gods, and Hercules was their favorite because he could do anything. Even Nebuchadnezzar returned tithe to his gods, the spoils of war. The Egyptians returned tithe to their gods, the spoils of war. Belshazzar, the last night when he lost the kingdom, they feel that he was trying to pay back tithe, trying to salvage his reign, the spoils of war. And in the Old Testament, you have a guy by the name of Abraham, returning tithe, the spoils of war. Culture had influenced him, but as you read the scriptural record, the difference is between the normal culture and what Abraham was doing was who he was giving the tithe to. Not by might, nor by power. Not a single hero is strong enough to do for me what I need done. But by my Spirit. What is that? Martin Luther once again says there are three conversions: the heart, the mind, and the purse. We do pretty good with the mind. We convince people intellectually of what we believe. We do a little less with the heart. They're converted for a while, and they see how the rest of us live, and they wonder, well, I don't know if I've ever been converted at all. But what about the purse? Or what about this? Is it converted? I'm a little boy sitting at the dinner table after church at home. My dad was an Adventist preacher. He'd preached 3 sermons on Sabbath. I'd say on the third one, Daddy, would you please make it short? I'm sitting there, the best meal of the week. The best dessert. We got dessert once a week. Never went to a Dairy Queen. Never went to the sweet shops. I don't know why, but that was a lifestyle. My daddy said, Johnny, did you see the man I baptized today? I didn't really care. I wanted my lemon pie, my dessert. Didn't faze him. He didn't stop. He said, Johnny, did you see the guy I baptized today? Yeah, Daddy. He finished his story. He said, you know, Johnny, when that man came up out of the baptistry, he was standing at the top and he turned around and said, hey, preacher, the water didn't hurt my money. And my dad says, what on earth are you talking about? Daddy, I don't understand, but I would like some more lemon pie. He said, Johnny, somehow or another this man got his billfold out. He pulled up his robe and fumbling around in that wet, cold robe, if you've ever worn one of those, he got his billfold out and he said, look, preacher, the water didn't hurt my money. My dad says, why did you bring your money into the baptistry? He said, preacher, I wanted my money converted. Your money converted? Just checking. You know, my definition of stewardship is managing tangible and intangible possessions for God's glory. Intangible possessions is like faith, trust, putting on the whole armor of God. Tangible possessions is money, things we can see. As I've studied this topic, I've discovered that what you and I do with the tangible possessions we have in our hand tells God what we think of the intangible possessions we have. Don't ever forget that. You may be wondering what this is. It's a guitar, but it's all I could afford on a preacher's salary. I'm not getting anything either. guess what? I get to come back and play for you on another time. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Gracious Lord in heaven, help us to keep you in clear focus as you take us through the journey of life. Forgive us of our sins. Help us to have our heart converted, our mind converted, and our purse converted. In Jesus' name, amen.